Salutations, everypup, and welcome to Chapter 52 of The One They Call Broccoli by Texiliaz. As always, the link to the fic will be in the description below. And with that out of the way, let's jump on into it. Chapter 52, All of Us. Chapter Summary. Izuku shares his story with his classmates, and secrets are revealed. His dads are curious about his many personalities, and some truths come to light. Also, adoption time! Author's notes. Hello, everyone. I know I said I would upload during the weekend, but I got done with this early and wanted to share it. That being said, I'm really nervous about this chapter since it will touch more on Izuku having DID, and I'm always nervous about sharing that kind of stuff. In case you missed it, this fic now has a podcast. Shout out to PuppyWanter502 for being awesome. Please go and check them out and show them some love, because they really deserve it. There is a link to the playlist this video is on. Trigger warnings. Surprisingly, no trigger warnings this time. Izuku's point of view. And, that's basically it. Izuku finished his story about how he came to live with his dads, starting from when Shota first found him, all the way to now. He told them about how he had hid his identity from his dad for several years. He also told them about his mom not being there for him, as well as his dad being all for one, which made several of his classmates gasp and hug him close. Though he left out the part about him inheriting All Might's quirk, instead making it sound like his quirk had randomly started mutating once he entered UA. He wasn't sure if the secret of One for All was one he wanted to share just yet. Maybe one day, but not right now. His classmates were listening intently, hanging on to his every word. Kaminari had even gone to make some popcorn in the middle of the story and was passing the bowl around among them all. It made Izuku blush with how interested they all looked in his life story. Was it really that interesting? Dude, that is insane! Kirishima said, sounding like his mind was blown. So, wait, how many here know about you being Sensei's cat? Amina Ashido asked, looking around all of their classmates. At that, Kachan raised his hand, as did Koda. Ida and Todoroki looked at each other uncertainly before half raising their own hands. I knew about Midoriya's cat form, and that he lived with Aizawa and Yagi-sensei, though I had no idea he lived with them as their cat, until we moved into UA and we actually met him in his broccoli form. Same, Todoroki said simply. Though I suppose it makes sense, considering our families know each other, and neither Aizawa nor Yagi ever mentioned having a child. Ida continued with a thoughtful hung. Koda spoke up quietly, causing everyone to look at him. I also learned about it when we first moved in, and I heard Broccoli speak with Midoriya's voice, he said, nervously petting the bunny that was laying in his lap. And you, Kachan? Sarah said teasingly. I was there when the damn nerd's quirk first manifested, so of course I knew he was a goddamn cat, Kachan scoffed, earning a surprised look from the others. Wait, you were there? You mean you were one of the kids who hurt him? Ashido shrieked, looking shocked and almost furious on Izuku's behalf. Yeah, I was, he all but growled. And trust me, if I could go back and change things, I would. I was a goddamn asshole back then, he said, surprising all of them. Please don't blame Kachan. Izuku was quick to jump in to defend his friend. He never hurt me again after that day. Well, good, Uradaka snarled, glaring daggers at Kachan as she hugged Izuku close. Hold on, so if you've been broccoli this whole time, then what's up with you hating me so much? Shinso asked, sounding genuinely upset as he pointed an accusing finger at Izuku. At that, Izuku couldn't help but blush. It's embarrassing, he mumbled, hiding his now red face in his hands. Come on, you can tell us, Gero, Asui said, peeking over the back of the couch to look at him with big, curious eyes. At the time, I felt like you were trying to steal my dad's I mean, I saw an All Might, and Broccoli didn't like that. Izuku mumbled, avoiding his classmate's gaze as his face burned. There was a chorus of "awws" all around him, and Izuku felt himself curl even more into himself in his embarrassment. He just wanted to crawl into a hole and disappear. Without even noticing it, Izuku had suddenly let his control of his quirk slip, and in his desperation to be small, he accidentally transformed into Broccoli in a cloud of smoke. The others gasped around him, causing him to look up in confusion, only for his eyes to widen as he realized how high everyone else was. They all looked like giants, which meant... Looking down at his paw, Broccoli let out a loud whine as his fear was confirmed. He'd turned back into a cat in front of his whole class, without even knowing. At least they were all already aware of his identity? He would hate to think what would happen if he had done this before the truth was out. But then again, he had a hard time seeing himself slip up this bad if they didn't know. Something about having the truth be out just made him relax and feel safe around them. With a shake of his head, Izuku turned into his hybrid form, just to make sure there would be no more accidents. Inside his mind, the vestiges were laughing at him, causing the lights to flicker around them. "Oh no! It's back!" Kaminari cried out, dropping the bowl of popcorn on the ground as he raised his arms to hide his horrified face. "It's been so calm for the last few days! Why is it back now?" Suddenly, a few of his classmates' eyes widened, and they turned to stare at Izuku with shell-shocked expressions as they finally seemed to connect the pieces. Mido bro, do you have something to tell us? Do you have something else to tell us? Kirishima asked him nervously. Izuku mumbled, fidgeting with his hands as he avoided looking at any of them. My quirk is sort of haunted. It's why I have several quirks, since they come from the ghosts living inside my head. He cringed as he said this, realizing how weird and creepy it sounded. Wait, really? I kept telling you guys that someone around here was haunted. Shinso sighed as she shook his head. You knew! Kaminari shrieked, turning to point an accusing finger at the tired-looking teen. Yup, they've been messing with me ever since I used my quirk on him at the sports festival, the purple-haired boy said, pointing his thumb at Izuku. And you couldn't have told us it was Midoriya? Kaminari cried out, sounding betrayed. I thought it was pretty obvious, Shinso scoffed, crossing his arms. Not my fault you couldn't figure it out. Suddenly, Uraraka laughed next to Izuku, causing everyone to look at her. So that's why your quirk is so weird. It's ghosts! Oh man, this somehow explains so much and yet so little. She giggled, not unkindly. It does make sense, Momo agreed with a solemn nod of her head. Yeah, Izuku chuckled, only to grimace as the lights continued to flicker. Daigoro, cut it out! You're gonna blow a fuse again! Daigoro pouted at him, but dutifully stepped away from the light switch he had been messing with. Daigoro? Is that one of the ghosts, Gero? Asui asked. Yeah, and he's an asshole, Izuku grumbled, causing his classmates to let out shocked laughs. So, how many ghosts are there? Uraraka asked him gently. And where did they even come from? Yeah, and why are they hanging out around you? Ashida added, looking at Izuku with interest, as did the rest of the class. There are 7 of them, and, I don't know, Izuku answered nervously. They've just sort of always been around, I guess. I only learned about them after the entrance exam, but it feels like they've been with me forever. Aw, that's oddly sweet, Uraraka cooed, a small smile on her face as she looked around as if trying to spot one of the ghosts. Can we meet them? Seto asked curiously. No, I don't know how to summon them yet. We are sort of working on it, but maybe one day? Since they all seem to grow stronger with time. I'm sorry, but how are we not freaking out about more about the fact that ghosts apparently exist? Kaminari all but shrieked. Be not afraid of beings residing in the dark, Tokuyomi said solemnly, causing the blonde to glare at him. Besides, Midoriya seems to have tamed these spirits. I hardly believe they will cause us any harm. Yeah, they are pretty harmless, aside from the occasional pranks, Izuku chuckled. Hey, we are not harmless, Nana argued, causing Izuku and the rest of his classmates to jump. What? Who said that? Ashido asked nervously, looking around the room to try and spot the unfamiliar voice. You heard Nana? Izuku exclaimed, shocked by this progress. Was that one of your ghosts? Kaminari shrieked. Yeah, Izuku answered nervously. They all sit in silence for a long moment until Izuku spoke up, talking seemingly into thin air. Hey, Nana, could you try that again? He asked softly. Of course, kiddo, Nana said before taking a deep breath and, in a much louder voice, said, Hello, everyone! But to their disappointment, no one reacted. You didn't hear her this time? Izuku asked, looking between his classmates. No. Did she say something? Aradaka answered, shaking her head. Damn. Darn. I guess we still need to work on that. Izuku sighed, feeling disappointed. Still, it was nice to know others could hear the vestiges. And who knows, with time and training, maybe they could even get them to show themselves. It would certainly make Toshinori and Gran Torino happy to see their old friend and mentor again. So, any more secrets we should know about? Ashido asked with a grin. Oh, no. I think that's enough about me for one day. Or week. Or ever. Izuku chuckled awkwardly, rubbing the back of his neck as he blushed. He'd never been good with talking about himself, and this was draining. Thankfully, the conversation moved away from him from there, and they quickly began talking about other things, such as everyone's internships in school and stuff. Sometimes the lights would flicker above them, but instead of being scared, his classmates would just laugh, much to Diagoro's disappointment. Kaminari still looked spooked, but it seemed like he was starting to relax around the whole ghosts being real thing. At least he didn't scream or jump high into the air every time the lights would flicker, or something small would move on its own anymore. No! My favorite victim! Diagoro cried out, sounding utterly heartbroken. Serves you right, Second scoffed. But at least you still have one bee to mess with, En said, trying to cheer the bigger man up. Oh, yeah! Daigoro suddenly grinned. I'm gonna go and pay those brats a visit! That Monoma kid has the funniest scream! After saying that, Daigoro quickly vanished out through one of the walls, presumably to go and scare their poor neighbors. Not even a second later, screaming could be heard from the 1B dorm. All of his classmates jumped to their feet while Izuku just put his head in his hands and with a groan. Don't worry, it's just Daigoro, Izuku sighed, causing his classmates to look at him curiously. He apparently needed some new victims now that you all are not scared of him anymore. Just as he said that, there was another scream, and Diagoro soon floated back into the lounge, laughing so hard he was clutching his stomach. Oh man, you should have seen their faces! The man laughed, looking awfully pleased with himself. Diagoro, you are hereby grounded. No more leaving this dorm, Izuku deadpanned, shaking his head disapprovingly. There was suddenly laughter all around him, and Izuku looked up in surprise. Sorry, it's just, you sounded exactly like Aizawa-sensei there, Aradaka laughed. The others all agreed, causing Izuku's mind to blue screen. He had sounded like his dad? No! He hadn't even realized saying that aloud until his classmates started laughing again. This was so embarrassing. Still, laughing together with his classmates like this, it felt nice. Eventually, Izuku headed back to his dad's apartment, not hiding the fact that that's where he went to go to sleep at night. His classmates all bid him good night as he changed back into Broccoli, and the little cat gave them all a slight wave with his paw before climbing through the cat door and into his dad's apartment. Finally, some peace and quiet, Broccoli thought, letting out a sigh of relief as he stepped paw in his home, only to reel back at the stench of paint that hit him, as well as the absolute mess on the floor. What happened? He thought, nose scrunched up at the horrible stench of this place. Broccoli? Shota called out from the living room, peeking into the hallway to see if it was him who entered. Ah, there you are. Sorry about the mess. Shinori got a little bit carried away preparing for Aries' arrival. A little? Broccoli thought with a snort, as he wandered further into the apartment, avoiding the various things and tools on the floor as he went. Do you think you could help us, little one? Toshinori asked, leaning against one of the heavy-looking desks that stood in the middle of the living room. I'm afraid I've gone over the limit for what I can do today. Without any hesitation, Izuku transformed back into his hybrid form, and together with Shota, he helped carry all the furniture back into the office. Slushy kept trying to trip him, not making it any easier, until Toshinori picked her up so she wouldn't be in the way. He noticed the bright pink-colored walls and gave his dad a questioning look. He also noticed how Slushy's fur was tinted a slight pink, too, as well as Toshinori's hair. Shota just shook his head at him, explaining, again, that Toshinori got carried away. Said man looked awfully sheepish as he held on to Slushy, avoiding their eyes as they placed down the furniture. Once that was done with, Izuku turned back into his broccoli form and went over to Shota, meowing to be picked up. The man gave him a soft smile before reaching down and picking him up, cradling him to his chest with no hesitation. Welcome home, kiddo, Shota said softly as he placed a kiss on Broccoli's forehead. The kitten preened at all the attention and gave a loud, approving purr in response. How about some dinner? Toshinori suggested. Broccoli meowed at that, nodding his head. And Slushy, his always hungry sister, got super excited at the mention of food. Together, they headed out into the kitchen, and Toshinori reached for the two cat bowls, only to pause, a conflicted look on his face. I apologize, but I do not think I can feed you cat food anymore. Not with a clear conscience. At that, Broccoli's ears fell flat against his head, and he gave a small, irritated growl. He was fine with it. As if reading his thoughts, Shota lifted him up until he was at the man's eye level and spoke. Just because you are fine with it doesn't mean we have to be, the man said firmly, before his voice softened as he continued. Please, let us feed you proper food. At least for tonight. Broccoli felt awfully conflicted, but he eventually gave a nod of approval, figuring he didn't want to be a burden on his dads or make them worry about him. Thank you, Toshinori breezed out, sounding relieved. He then turned to a meowing Slushy and gave her portion of the cat food. Broccoli drooled at the sight. He wanted to eat now, too! Now then, the blonde continued, turning to face both Shota and Broccoli. Do you have any favorite food? His dad asked. Broccoli's eyes widened at that, having not expected the question. Shota let him down on the floor, and Broccoli turned back into his hybrid form so he could answer. I... I don't know. I guess I really liked Katsudon when I was a kid, but I don't know if that's still my favorite, Izuku answered, fidgeting with his hands as he kept his eyes firmly at the floor. Katsudon it is, Toshinori said with a bright smile and a clap of his hands. You don't have to, Izuku started to protest, but was cut off by Toshinori waving a hand at him. I know, but I want to, his dad told him with a bright smile. Okay, Izuku agreed with a sigh, knowing there was no use arguing. He was just about to turn back into his cat form when Shota stopped him, the man having laid a hand on his shoulder. I know you probably want to rest, but you do have a lot of schoolwork to catch up on, the man told him firmly. At that, Izuku pouted, but he gave in with a sigh and let himself be led over to the couch, where there was a lot of paperwork. I'm not happy about it either, Shota sighed, as he sat down on one side of the couch and pulled a stack of papers towards him, leaving the smaller pile to Izuku. But this needs to be done. I know, Izuku whined, sitting down next to his dad and looking over his homework. He had honestly completely forgotten about school and homework while he was at the hospital, and now it had caught up to him to bite him in the ass. It sucked, but what can you do? With a sigh, Izuku picked up a pencil and started filling out his homework. Meanwhile, Shota worked quietly beside him, while Toshinori made dinner in the kitchen. It felt nice. And Izuku was suddenly very happy about his secret being out in the open, if it meant he could spend time with his family like this. Around them, the vestiges ventured around the apartment. Nana watched Toshinori closely as he cooked, while Ikage sat next to Sashi on the floor. Diagoro was off somewhere, probably to try and freak out one of the students. Without even noticing, Izuku started to relax, his whole body going pleasantly numb as he focused on his homework. There were voices in his head, both from the vestiges who were talking amongst themselves, but also something else. Something much more quiet and almost desperate in a way it was trying to grab his attention. "Dinner is ready!" Toshinori called out, startling Izuku out of his thoughts. He looked up to find Toshinori had already set the table, and he finally noticed the delicious scent of katsudan drifting through the air. It made his stomach growl, and he blushed as he stood up and headed over to the table. It felt weird, sitting down across from his dad's to eat, and Izuku found himself hesitating, suddenly feeling very nervous about all of this. What if he did something wrong? Or messed it up so badly they didn't want him at the table anymore? "Eat," Shota told him firmly, startling Izuku out of his spiraling thoughts. "I can feel your anxiety from all the way over here. Just eat, before it gets cold." "Oh, okay," Izuku mumbled, picking up his chopsticks with trembling hands and before taking the first bite. And as soon as he did, his eyes widened at the nostalgic taste and he turned to look at Toshinori with a wide smile. "This is really good," he said honestly, with a big smile. The man immediately lit up at the praise. "Thank you, my boy. I've been trying to improve my cooking skills." "Yeah, I know," Izuku chuckled. "It's been paying off." All the tension seemed to leave the room after that, and they ate their dinner together as they made small talk between bites. Sashi was obviously jealous, and, after gaining the okay from Shota, Izuku got to feed her a small piece of meat, just so she wouldn't feel so left out. They talked a bit about school, and Eri, and just whatever else they could think of. And then, his dad brought up that subject. "So, my boy, I heard from Shota that you have, how do I say this? Several personalities?" Toshinori said softly, smiling nervously at him as he moved around the food on his plate with his chopsticks. Immediately, Izuku tensed up before giving a small nod. Without meaning to, his eyes darted over to the door, feeling the urge to run and hide rising in his chest. "Do not look so frightened. I was simply curious about them," Toshinori quickly reassured him, making him relax just a little bit. "Could you tell us a bit more about them and who they are?" Um, that might be a bit difficult since I don't even know them," Izuku answered quietly. "I only know of a few, and, I just learned Sakura's name today. I always knew she was a small child, but nothing more. I'm sorry, you'll have to talk to her directly to learn more." "I see," Toshinori hummed. "What about this form?" Shota asked, gesturing to Izuku's hybrid form. "Is this another altar, or is it Izuku?" Izuku was just about to answer that of course he was still Izuku. After all, he shared all his memories with this human form. But so did Broccoli? And being called Izuku while he was in his cat form just felt wrong. Something inside him cried out in protest, a desperate urge to be heard, tearing at the front of his mind. It had been there before, when he was in his hybrid form, but for the first time, Izuku listened. And also for the first time, He tried to act. He leaned into the feeling and let himself relax. Before he knew it, his mouth was already moving on its own. Nekuro, he said softly, only to blink in surprise. That was what the voice kept calling out, wasn't it? It kept repeating that single name over and over and over again. Come again? Shota asked, looking confused. I think my name is Nekuro? It's, what I keep hearing in my head? He answered hesitantly. Nekuro, that is a lovely name, Toshinori said with a soft smile, no sign of judgment in his voice. Yeah, Izuku, Nekuro, agreed nervously. But, I don't mind if you keep calling me Izuku. I can understand if it is difficult to keep track of all these names, and I don't want to be a burden, he stammered, waving his hands in front of him. Nekuro. Shota cut him off, causing the boy to close his mouth with an audible click. We want you to be comfortable. All of you. So if that means using the correct names and pronouns, then of course we will do it. You sure you don't mind? He asked nervously, fidgeting with his hands as he trembled in his seat. He just felt so scared of being a burden, like they would suddenly decide he was too much and throw him out. We don't, Shota reassured him. Then, call me Nekuro? And, and I think I like going with they, them. I don't really feel like either a boy or a girl while I'm like, this? Nekuro said softly, gesturing to their hybrid form. It was weird and hard to explain, but something about being called a boy or a girl just felt wrong. He didn't feel like anything, just Nekuro. Of course, my boy. Sorry, I still need to get used to this. Toshinori stumbled over his words, rubbing the back of his neck sheepishly. At that, Nekuro let out a small laugh. It's okay. I think we all need time to get used to it. The conversation soon shifted from there, and after they had finished eating, Broccoli turned back into his cat form for the night. The next day, Broccoli had tried to get his dads to feed him like normal, but they once again refused, claiming they wanted him to eat with them at the table. And so, with a pout, Izuku turned back into his human form. Who are you right now? Shota asked softly. Just, just Izuku, Izuku answered with a nervous smile. There is no such thing as just Izuku, my boy, Toshinori chuckled, causing Izuku to blush. You know what I mean, he grumbled. He then remembered something and stood up, only to return a few moments later with one of his notebooks. Are you seriously going to do homework while you eat? Shota asked him, raising an unimpressed eyebrow at the boy. Izuku just smiled and shook his head before letting Nana take control of his hand as she wrote out, Hiya, Toshi! Hello, Shota. Both his dads said, looking between each other and the notebook. It's Nana, Izuku explained softly, causing Toshinori's eyes to widen. We sort of learned how to do this when we were interning with Gran Torino, but there hasn't really been a good time to show you both. Sorry. At that, Toshinori gave him a watery smile, looking like he was on the verge of tears. Oh, hello, Nana, he whispered, sounding very emotional. It is nice to finally have a way to converse with you. Likewise, Nana answered through text, looking a bit teary-eyed herself. It made Izuku feel a bit guilty. He had meant to show this to his mentor a long time ago, but with everything that had happened, there just wasn't a good time. We also think you might be able to speak with her one day. She managed to make herself heard yesterday in front of the class. I'd love that, my boy, Toshinori answered with a smile. They continued to eat their breakfast, Nana speaking with Toshinori and even Shota through text, while Izuku happily joined in on the conversation where it felt fitting. It suddenly hit him how easy this was to just exist as Izuku. Sure, he was still terrified of his dads changing their mind and wanting to get rid of him, but Right now, this felt nice. Izuku went back to school that day. He was a bit nervous about his classmates being weird after everything he had told them, but he should have known there was no need to worry. The lights flickered as he stepped into the classroom, but once again, instead of being spooked, his classmates just laughed as they turned to him. Hey, Izuku! Hey, ghosts! Ashida laughed. Hello, Izuku greeted them with a relieved smile. Oh, come on! At least give me one scream! Diagoro cried out, stomping his foot in the air like an angry child. The whole thing was so ridiculous that Izuku couldn't help but smile. What are you looking at, Gero? Asui asked him, tilting her head curiously as she watched the spot Diagoro was floating in. Oh, nothing. Just Diagoro is still sulking because no one is scared of him anymore. Izuku chuckled. I'm not sulking! Diagoro argued, floating closer and waving his arms around. Yeah, you are, Izuku laughed. Now stop throwing a toddler tantrum and let me get to class. Toddler tantrum! At that, the other vestiges started laughing uncontrollably, all of them turning to tease Diagoro for being less mature than an actual child. It made Izuku laugh too, as he sat down in his seat with a shake of his head, uncaring of the curious stares he got. One evening, Shota and Toshinori surprised Izuku with a gift. Here you go, young Izuku, Toshinori said warmly, handing Izuku a small jewelry box alongside an envelope. Izuku looked between his dads, confused by the gift. Come on, open it, Shota said softly, gesturing to the box. Doing as he was told, Izuku opened the box, and inside was a strange necklace. It looked like a normal necklace at first, but it had a LED screen in the middle of it, as well as a button on the back. Curiously, Izuku tried pressing the button, only for his eyes to widen as the screen lit up with a green background and his name written boldly in the middle. He tried pressing it again, and the screen changed to a bright pink with Sakura's name, and pressing it again revealed a blue background with Nekoto's name. The next and final screen was a white background with the word unknown. It's so you can let people know who is fronting, Toshinori explained, looking and sounding awfully proud. If that's something you want, Shota added carefully. We also got a matching pendant for Broccoli's collar, he said, holding up a new yellow collar for the cat with the name Broccoli on a bright yellow screen. Izuku gave them both a watery smile as he changed the setting on the necklace to Izuku and put the necklace around his neck. Thank you. I love it. We love it, he said, wiping away the tears that had started to fall. Toshinori's point of view. Toshinori smiled down at his successor, feeling immensely happy that they had liked the gift. Now, on to the other one. There is still one thing left, Toshinori said softly, gesturing to the envelope clutched in young Izuku's hand. Oh, right. Sorry, Izuku said quickly, before moving to open the envelope and look inside. The boy pulled out the papers, reading them over before pausing and reading them again. I don't understand, Izuku said, hands shaking as he nervously looked up at them, eyes wide and filled with tears. It's an adoption form, Shota explained softly. I get that, but do you really... I mean, are you sure? I'm not exactly a normal kid. Izuku sniffed, moving to wipe his face with his sleeve. Kiddo, we don't want you because you're normal or not. We want you because you are you, Shota told him gently, a smile on his face as he spoke. Shota is right, my boy, Toshinori said, wrapping an arm around his husband's shoulders. Besides, being normal is overrated. Thank you, Izuku whispered, clutching both the papers and necklace to his chest. I'd love that if you'll have me. We will always want you, my boy, Toshinori answered with a gentle smile, reaching out with his free arm to hug Izuku close. Always, Shota echoed, also wrapping his arms around their child. By their feet, Sashi watched them with interest, letting out a deep purr as she walked up to them to join the hug as best as she could. Hey, Slushy. Izuku laughed between sobs as he moved to pick his sister up and hug her close to his chest. The cat meowed up at him, looking extremely pleased as she stretched and leaned against her brother. Toshinori watched them with a smile, fondness filling his entire being. He wasn't sure what he'd done to deserve this life, having such a wonderful husband, a child that turned out to be several children in one, and of course, cats. But he wouldn't trade this for anything in the world. Here's some fan art I made of the necklace. Just a very simple 3D model I made in Blender. The first three, the ones in silver, are all one single necklace with a button at the back that can change the screen to show the name of the one fronting. Meanwhile, the fourth one, the gold one, is a static one that Broccoli wears in his cat form. Now, this might not make much sense, but I imagine the necklace disappears along with Izuku's clothes when he changes into his cat form, and instead, the collar and its pendant shows up in its place. Does that make sense? Not at all. Do I want it? Yes! And then there's art, which you'll have to have an AO3 account to go check out. Author's notes! Oh man, what did you think? I was so nervous about introducing Nekuro since it was sort of last minute add to the story. Truthfully, I wasn't sure if I wanted his hybrid form to be another Alta or not, but it just made sense, you know? They are basically the same as Zuku in every way except for their name and pronouns, as well as small differences in preferences and stuff like that. I like to imagine them as Zuku's twin, lol. Anyway, hope you liked them. Please be kind to them down in the comments. Next up, we'll have more of Eri. Yay! As well as lots of Dadso and Dadmite moments. Just lots and lots of fluff as we wrap this story up with a nicely tied bow. The next chapter will sadly be the next to the last one, with the last one being a sort of epilogue chapter. I also have some fun one-shots planned that I might do in the future. But yeah, the main story is sadly coming to an end. It feels bittersweet. As always, thank you everyone for your continued patience, comments, and support. I can't believe we've been working on this story for years, and it is finally coming to a close. I'm thankful to you all for sticking around through the story. Seriously, you all are awesome, and I love all of you. Next chapter should be up sometime next week. And again, as always, hope you all have a wonderful day or night wherever you are in the world. Stay safe. I love you. And that's a wrap on chapter 52. I have some things I want to say. Okay, first, I want to formally ask Texiliaz on air here if I have permission to read the other works in the Adventures of Broccoli and His Family series. Up to you, Texiliaz. Do you want me to read your one-shots or not? I would like to, but you can say no because these are your works and you're entitled to that. Anyway, I also wanted to say, hearing that this fic is ending is kind of like this bittersweet moment for me because I don't know if all of you know this, but Broccoli, the one they call Broccoli, was the first fic I ever read on AO3. And now it's also the first fic I've ever podficked. And so, yeah, it's just this fic it means a lot to me, and it'll be bittersweet to see it end, but also it'll feel like not the end of something, but the beginning of something. You know what I mean? Anyway, um I really like this chapter. I personally liked Nekuro. I liked Nekuro a lot. Um I like how the name is kind of like a play on being a cat too, because Neko is a cat in Japanese, I believe. Um, so yeah, I like Nekuro. Sweet character. I can't speak from experience because I don't have DID, but I like the way the author writes DID. I do like to do a lot of research on DID in my free time because I have friends who have it. Um, that's all I'm going to say on this matter because I don't want to accidentally put my foot in my mouth. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed. Please go show the original author Texiliaz some love. It is much deserved love. And please leave me a comment. I love reading your comments. They make me so happy. Please leave me specifically hate comments and I'll shout you on the next video. That being said, shout outs to Shigeruki_Tomura, and Starkill Knight 6167. Thank you so much for your hate comments. There was another one in there trying to pretend to be a hate comment, but it was not hateful enough! Anyway, Texiliaz, why must you force me to say nice things about myself? All that being said, I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye, pups!